And we're back, guys. Hey, Richard, what's going on?
Hi, John.
John. That's Richard. Now he's over there. You see, we take a week off and I lose my mojo, but we are back. Everybody have a good break?
It was a good break.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you are not following us on Instagram and Facebook, it's at Bronze and Modern Gods. Pretty easy. Give us a like, subscribe if you're watching YouTube. Shows our videos to more people and makes us feel good and gives us a little dopamine burst and validation, which, you know, we all need in these times.
We come from broken homes. We need the validation.
Please, Daddy never loved me. So if you leave a review on a podcast platform, that fills that void in my heart. Today, our topic is, man, you know, the internet's kind of roasting Wonder Woman 84. We have our reaction to it, plus more fallout from DC Comics. What is going on over there with the #2 company in the nation? We're going to find out. But first, Richard, let's check the viewer mail.
You've got mail.
We have a viewer mail from Dean the Barbarian. I'm sorry. I was trying to read it the wrong way. Dean the Barbarian. He says
Dean TV on YouTube. He has two different yeah.
Gotcha. I really got on here seeing if you, Richard, and your DC friend would make a review video for this movie. I think it would not only be hilarious, but would be good at the same time.
Well, our DC friend, aka our resident expert in all things DC Comics, Evan, just so happens to be here. He's taking a sip of coffee. We caught you. So, Dean, you read our minds. What's the first thing we thought of? Oh, Flush. Oh. By the way, I want to give a shout out on my shirt. This is my We Can Be Heroes shirt. If you guys ever follow them on Instagram, or they have a great shop, they're really good guys. They hooked me up with a few things I needed. So, Richard, you're just giving up on the nerd shirts.
You know what? I have a nerd shirt. I had it in the. We're saving it for 2021.
Oh, okay. Evan, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me back. I love it. Lots of DC stuff. Woo.
There's a lot going on. So let's dive right into it. First, before we get into Wonder Woman and everything, let's talk about instead of our hot book of the week. Richard had a really good idea. Our favorite acquisitions of 2020 and our goals for 2021, our collecting goals. And Richard, I would love for you to go first.
Yes. When I was out, I had to think about it for a bit because I have two different choices. My first choice was something that I bought back in January when I was out seeing John. We went to the California Comic-Con, which was an awesome experience. I had a lot of fun there. But at that time, I purchased my Fantastic Four #5.
Can we ask
$3,700 is how much I paid for it.
And what's it worth now?
At least $6,000.
Wow.
Nice. is the last estimate I have now. You know, we've got a Fantastic Four confirmed now for the MCU. Once we actually see Doom on the screen, the price is no limit on this book. And frankly, I don't care. This is the definition of a PC book for me. I always say my whole collection is for sale at all times, but this is the last book I will ever sell. So a really important book to me. I'm a huge Doom fan, and that was a no-brainer. I ended up, as you know, John knows, I went around to every booth at that show looking for this book specifically. I brought an envelope of $100 bills with me. And so I went around to all the booths.
Well, tell everybody how you found it, because it's a good lesson for people when you're at a show.
Yeah, just go around, ask people, talk to people. The Golden Age Guru happened to have a booth there, and I geeked out because I loved stuff that he does. So I went up to him and we talked, and I had my picture taken with him, and then I told him what I was looking for, and it just happens to be so he didn't have it, but one of his friends happened to be passing by at that exact instant, and he reached out and said, "Hey, he's looking for a Fantastic Four #5. Do you happen to have one?" And this gentleman said, "I think I might have one in my hotel room." How could you not know that you know?
That's my favorite part of the story. I think I have one. Let me check.
I think I used it to sandwich around my AF-15s. So, you know, we went out, he went up to his room. He did have one. He happened to have one of the grade I wanted, which is a 3.5, because that's what I could afford. And we talked, we did a little haggling, and I sat there and counted out $3,700 bills and exchanged it for a piece of funny book. But awesome. No, it was a great time. I really, again, thank the Golden Age Guru. He really did me a solid in getting me that connection. And it was an experience.
And what's your runner-up for the year? I know you got something else you love.
Yeah, my runner-up is my Ultimate Fallout 4 newsstand. This book I bought raw for $976, I believe, off eBay. And at the time, it was a big deal because that was the most that had ever been paid for a raw. And actually, my ceiling for that particular auction was $1,150, I think. I was prepared to pay more because these things just did not come up very often for sale. So I really wanted one to complete my collection of Miles stuff. As you can see behind me, I've got a wrong way. Got a whole bunch of Miles stuff back there.
Yep.
And so $972 sound like a lot of money, or back then. You know, this is probably $4,000 now.
Yeah. And here's the Susie Orman reference of the week. Your ROI is amazing on your investment.
Yep.
And by the way, we have to say this every time now. How much Morales?
Miles Morales.
And so what's your goal for 2021?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. I am a big fan of Love and Rockets, the series. Love and Rockets, to me, with Jaime Hernandez and Gilbert, it's hard to put into words what it means.
The book you and I grew up with. We were reading it at the same time. Evan was reading it too. Oh, yeah. As young alternative punk rockers, whatever you want to call it, they were our jam.
Yeah, because it wasn't like it started off kind of superhero-y, but then it kind of morphed into this story, these two twin intertwining stories of two young women growing up in Southern California. And then you had the stories that focused around people in Mexico, South America. I'm not exactly sure what country.
Palomar.
Palomar. Mm-hmm. Okay, gotcha. And it was written by two different brothers, and then it's just really powerful stories, really engaging, and like you both say, it was part of our growing up. So
it still is. If you read it, I'm still reading it, and they're in their 50s now.
Yeah, isn't that amazing how they aged the characters? The problem is that issue number 1 has a black cover. It is oversized, which means people couldn't bag it back then, and it is devilishly hard to find in high grade.
Well, let's discuss which number 1 you're talking about. Are you talking about the self-published number 1 or the Fantagraphics number 1?
I am talking about the Fantagraphics number 1. The self-published with Bem on the cover. I like that book, but to me, that wasn't the book that I bought back in 1982. I bought the Fantagraphics book, and I collected the whole Fantagraphics series. So that's what I'm looking for in terms of number 1. Again, it's really hard to get it high in grade. There's only one 9.8 on the census, period. 6 9.6s. So my goal is to find a raw of this that I can get graded and hopefully get a 9.8, because the 9.8 that's out there now is like $3,800, I believe, is what the last sale on it was. And, you know, single 9.8 is never going to be cheap. So if I can get another 9.8, I have a 9.0 right now. It's a nice copy. So I'm using it kind of as a placeholder, but that's my goal, is to get a higher grade 9.8, maybe settle for a 9.6 because settling. But that's my goal, you know, and that's another book that's going to be one in the permanent PC, because it's something that I really, really I enjoy. It's a part of who I am. You know, reading those books kind of set the tone for a lot of my personal beliefs, and it's amazing how comic books can affect you in such fundamental ways. So anyway, that's my pick.
It's also interesting, Love and Rockets, how you could read it being in Ohio and, you know, still enjoy it. And yet when I moved to Southern California, all of a sudden, all these references that I didn't get or understand, I'm like, oh, Hayward, Whittier, you know, I get it now. So it becomes a very different book when you live in Southern California. And boy, you know, I love Gilbert, but I love me some Jaime.
Yeah,
the
Jaime is awesome.
Amazing. So I'm with you on that. My get of 2020 is a little different because I didn't really acquire something outside of my Avengers 4 that I got from We Can Be Heroes earlier this year. I was more proud of actually getting off my duff and taking care of my PC as opposed to slabbing and flipping and doing all this other stuff. I kind of let my PC sit aside and gather dust. So I actually dug in and I pressed and sent away my foxholes that I have had for years. I got them, a lot of them from Terry, California Comic Con back in 2014, 2013. And I got number 1 through 4 over the years. And my number 1 is the second highest graded. It's a 5.0, but it just tells you how tough it is.
Wow.
Classic Kirby. And my number 2 is just beautiful. It is this beautiful deep purple cover. This is the single highest graded number 2. And you really can't see the art. I'll put it up on the super, but it's just beautiful. And so that
are those Golden Age sized?
They are Golden Age sized. Yeah. They're from 1954. Yep. They're from Simon & Kirby's own publishing company, Mainline, that only lasted for a couple of years. So the print runs are not astronomical. And they're just very tough books. In fact, going back to Jeff, Golden Age Guru, earlier this year, he posted his that he got slabbed. And that's what really inspired me to get off my duff and slab mine. So I'm going to have to share these and tag him later and be like, one up. But for this year, I was supposed to do it this year. Only one of them came up on eBay, and it was just way too expensive. And that is my Captain America 212 35-cent variant with the blank Marvel Comics banner printing error on top.
So, yep. So how expensive is too expensive?
He had it up for $3,500. I'm sitting there watching it. It was $3,500 for a while. Then he reduced it to $32,000, then $3,000. Now it's down to $2,750, and I'm like this close on the trigger. I shouldn't say that. It's still too expensive. But that is a major goal for 2021. If not that, I definitely want Tales of Suspense 58 and 59 in high grade. Those are the first Captain America issues in Tales of Suspense. So plug, if you got one high grade, hit me up. And maybe some Golden Age Cap. I dipped in Golden Age Cap. I've got a few. I haven't really dug too far in. It's kind of frustrating because I had, like, outside of Captain America #1, the hardest one to get, Captain America Weird Tales #74. I had one and I sold it. So it's like, I got to go back and find that and pay.
Again, you bought a house, okay?
Right. Right.
It's a good trade. You made a good trade.
I did buy a house. Evan, how about you?
So let's be fair. My collection, I personally own about 35,000 comic books. So I have quantity and I need to start focusing on quality. So my basement is getting redone in 2021. My books are out of order. Let's be fair. Yeah, I got to sort them all. And then I'm going to start grading some, and that's when I plan on getting into more of the game that you guys are do on a regular basis. So that being said, my big book for 2020, I'll go that route since I didn't really buy any previous copies of anything this year, is The Three Jokers. So I was looking forward to that book mostly because I was so fascinated with, we mentioned this in previous episode, where somebody will drop something and then another writer will have to come in and go, well, what the hell am I supposed to do with this, right? So Metron's chair tells Bruce that there's three Jokers, and they leave it at that, and it stays there as a dangling plot line for years, right? So I was really hoping that it would turn out to be good, and it was so good and so tight, and loved it. Way, way, way better than the Joker War, which had good moments, but Three Jokers was a great book. I think it's probably going to be worth something at some point down the road. But to me, that was my 2020. Like, that was my pleasant surprise book of 2020.
And was that your favorite story arc of 2020?
It's up there for sure, because again, nothing has ever made me care about Red Hood, and that book was the first time where I was like, oh, I actually kind of like this character in this, and I really enjoyed I thought it was tightly written to do that much storytelling in 3 books when some people, Brian Bendis Marvel, take like 40 issues to tell the same amount of story.
That's Brian Bendis DC now.
Yes. Oh, I'm aware. And he, like we've said before, he's better at the game on DC than he ever was at Marvel. But that decompression storytelling rubs me the wrong way. So I loved it. I thought it was great. My get for next year, as I start to dip my toes into actually going back and getting some older books, I am a huge Crime Syndicate nerd. Love them. They're great. Everything that's been done with them, the Grant Morrison hardcover, I have a lot of Crime Syndicate stuff. But I do not have Justice League of America 29, which is their first appearance. So I'll probably start going on the lookout for that because they're going to have their own book next year, and we'll talk about it after Future State. And
completely underrated key, and you can get it now when it's not crazy because, yeah, that's a good one.
Yep. So love the characters. Always, every time they show up, I'm in for the ride and love everything about them. So I would love to have their first appearance for sure.
Awesome. The other thing you had in the show notes is that you hope there is a DC Comics to continue buying books from in 2021. Yeah. We'll hit that. We'll hit that in a few minutes, but let's get moving on to our main topic, which is Wonder Woman 84, or as I call it, WTF 84. What the hell? And here, let's just get into it, okay? Richard and I have thoughts. Evan, we're going to end it with you because we want to end on an up note.
And that's okay, because you know what? The fact of the matter is, well, I think we should start by saying it's definitely not the worst superhero movie of all time.
Oh, no.
There have been plenty of worse movies.
If I was
I'll start with that.
Yeah, if I was to nominate the worst superhero movie of all time, I'm going to have to go with the first Daredevil movie.
Catwoman.
Catwoman. Oh, yeah, Catwoman. What am I thinking? I like Howard the Duck, by the way. So that tells you where my opinions lie.
Sure. That's damning with faint praise, though. You know, it's not the worst movie ever made.
The worst. There was a good, possibly great 90-minute movie somewhere in there. It was hidden, it was obfuscated, it was messed up, but there are 90 minutes of gold in there. The good. Here's my good stuff. Kristen Wiig, SNL, Goofy, the little baby hands character, all that stuff from SNL. Thank you. I did not expect her to be that good. And the best part was she was nerdy when she needed to be nerdy. She was vulnerable when she needed to be vulnerable. And she was downright evil. And oh my gosh, holy crap, when she needed to be really villainous. And I was super impressed by her. The Cheetah versus Wonder Woman fight at the end, kind of an homage to Superman 2, Richard Donner a little bit, and some of the sequences for you real hardcore nerds out there. Loved it. Thought it was great. It came far too late for me, but that was fantastic. And even the beginning, the mall sequence with the little girl being held hostage and the swinging around and getting rid of the security cameras, that was fun. Now, okay, the bad, Cairo. You could have cut out the entire Cairo, Egypt 30-minute sequence and not lost a bit of that movie, except it would have been tighter and more fun. I won't even get into the whole problematic thing about Gal Gadot being from Israel and cutting off the entire Arab world's water supply. Did anybody think about the optics here? Maybe just me. But not only was Egypt kind of a waste of time because, Maxwell Lord goes in, puts up this wall, walks away. That could have been a 5-minute sequence. The 2 kids that she saves that are playing in the road, the worst superhero trope of all time, they don't hear the 6 or 7 tanks barreling down on them. No, mommy, my ball. And then she swings down, and we had to rewind this 3 or 4 times because we were laughing so hard. She grabs the 2 kids. They instantly become mannequins. Obviously, mannequins strapped, little dolls strapped about to go. She then rolls around the road with them 30 or 40 times, and the kids are like, "Boop, not a scratch. Oh, okay, kids, go." They would have been like paste. That just drove me nuts. Maxwell Lord. I get it. Thematically, he represents everything bad about the 80s. Greed, more, excess, selfishness. But can we just trim it a little bit? The movie was more about Maxwell Lord. And, you know, then at the revelation that he was abused as a child, no shoot, Sherlock. Okay, got it. And I couldn't help but think, and Evan, you're going to probably back me up on this one. In the comics, Identity Crisis, after that, all that aftermath, the Maxwell Lord problem was solved by Wonder Woman very quickly with just a little neck snap. I get that people hated that. Fans really had a bad reaction to Wonder Woman killing. It was interesting for the character, but I get why they didn't do it. But I couldn't help but think about that the entire time was, you know what, Diana, you can solve this real fast.
So let me jump in real quick by saying, let's not forget the backlash from Man of Steel.
Yeah.
So if you think DC was going to go back to the well and have one of their Trinity break someone else's neck, that was not going to happen.
No, and I agree, but it was in the back of my mind the entire time. And you have to come up with a reason. Now that he's the wishing stone, he's invulnerable or something, you know, a line of dialogue would have solved that problem real quick. Now, if they had focused on Wonder Woman versus Cheetah, this would have been a fantastic movie. Just have her make the wish on the wishing stone. The wishing stone doesn't even be a part of the plot anymore. That would have been a great, great movie. But, you know, what do I know? They just announced Wonder Woman 3 today.
I was going to lead with that. And it made $84 million worldwide. So it's going to make its money back.
For sure. All right, Richard. Your turn. Fire away.
Yeah, you know, you and I agree with you on a lot of points. I went into the movie, watched it with my wife, and we enjoyed it as a movie, as a cinematic piece of work. But that's looking at it as a whole, not really digging into the pieces of it. So if we talk about it more in detail, first of all, I have to say Gal Gadot, she looked amazing. She looked like Wonder Woman. I totally bought into her being that role. So kudos to her. She did that for the other two movies. This was just amazing. Or the other movie, I'm sorry. Yeah. Chris Pine, I think he was out of his element though. He makes a great leading man. I don't think he makes as good of a support character. And but I also felt the same way about him in the first movie. He's trying to exist in that sun that is Wonder Woman, and it's hard for an actor to really find their place in it. Let's see what else. Oh, Kristen Wiig, I agree. She did an excellent job. The transformation of her over time to Cheetah was amazing. She started off being this vulnerable, quiet person, and then you could see how that power corrupted her over time, and she turned into the Cheetah. Although that final transformation, I really don't get how she went from where she was human to where she was Cheetah. I missed that part. But again, I'm taking it all in strides as a movie.
There was a lot of dialogue on the plane with Maxwell Lord where
the apex predator conversation. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is that where it came from?
Yeah. But I just saw her and went, kitty.
I have to say though, with Maxwell Lord, I could not stop seeing Nathan Fillion. Every time I looked at him, I kept thinking, oh, that's Nathan. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's another actor. That made it a little bit difficult. There's a lot of difficulties with details in the movie. The invisible plane scene and how she learned from her father to change the. Okay, whatever. Sure. The whole flying the plane, having a World War I fighter pilot fly a FB-111 bomber, and know what the switches to flip.
Even worse. Steve Trevor takes over another man's body entirely, and we're supposed to be okay with that. But go on.
Okay, yeah. It's that was really hard for me to overlook, and the whole flight to Egypt. And I agree with you. The whole thing with Egypt was there for one and one purpose only. It was the scene with the vehicles where they're doing the big fight scene. It's so that she could get in that I'm vulnerable because my powers are being sapped. That was the whole purpose of the Egypt piece, but that could have been done a different way. It did make the movie run long. I thought the Linda Carter scene at the end was nice. For those who don't know, at the end, past the end credits, she shows up. But
she looked amazing.
She always looks amazing. Even in Super Troopers, she looked amazing.
I don't know if that was some crazy CGI on her face or whatever, but I was like, wow.
Yeah, she did look amazing. But I felt, you know, some things they do for fan service, and I appreciate that. But I kind of felt that this was kind of just wedged in because people were expecting it. I think that it could have been done better than the scene that she did. And it just felt kind of, oh yeah, here is the obligatory, you know, post-credit scene. And I thought that felt a little forced. Overall, though, I thought it was an enjoyable movie. We had a good time. I will not put it as my favorite superhero movie, which has to be probably Endgame. But I would say that it was more enjoyable than a lot of the superhero movies from pre-MCU. I've loved all the MCU movies, so I'll say that.
All the MCU movies?
Most of the MCU movies. Okay, you got me there. Most of the MCU movies.
There's some bummer MCU movies.
Evan, it is your turn to turn to us and say, John and Richard, you ignorant sluts.
No. So first of all, thank you for the set, Richard, so that I can do the spike.
Okay.
All right, here we go. So to be clear, I'm not going to defend this movie as hard as you think I am, because I personally gave it a B-, and I'll tell you what I liked about it. So all the things you said, Kristen Wiig's transformation, usually the villain transformations in comic book movies are like night and day. It's like Anakin Skywalker diving into the dark force, like dark side of the force, like all of a sudden you're just a horrible creature. So her transformation was really well done. Max's was okay, but here's the problem. This is why I wish they would stop using multiple villains in movies. Just cut it out. Like Dr. Octopus in Spider-Man 2 is beautiful. Green Goblin, stupid costume, but beautiful. Then you go to Spider-Man 3, you got Venom and Sandman, and the whole thing just falls apart. Stop doing multiple villains. Even Batman Returns, Penguin and Catwoman could have done a lot better just having
Batman Returns, Batman Forever, Mr. Freeze, Two-Face, Riddler,
Poison Ivy, right? It's too much, right? So I had an issue with that. I personally, so my hangups were, I didn't like this Maxwell Lord because I love Maxwell Lord. He was the leader of the Bwahaha Giffen Justice League, which was great. Then he was the head of Checkmate, which was awesome. And he's got so many great stories. And by the way, he doesn't have a son. In fact, they didn't introduce Maxwell Lord's kids until recently. He's got a daughter named Liar Liar who has the same powers. But that whole storyline is completely fabricated for the movie, completely unnecessary, if only to redeem him at the end, which felt forced. So I didn't like that Maxwell Lord. I agree with you that I like the cheetah, and if they had stuck with her. The other thing is, not sure why the cheetah was gray. Would have loved to see her in the yellow because there would have been a hell of a lot better contrast between the two.
Would have matched her shoes.
And how about a transformation scene? Like show her turn into the cheetah. That might have been nice, right? So, but I loved the golden armor on Wonder Woman. That's a nice nod. You guys didn't like the invisible jet stuff. I personally love the invisible jet. What a great way to shoehorn that in, because that's such a kitschy, like Super Friends era Wonder Woman thing to pull off. I thought it was fun, which is all I need from a comic book movie. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great. And here's the other problem with Wonder Woman. A lot of people that I've been talking with on the internet are having challenges with the fact that it is not as action-packed as it should be. And I will defend Wonder Woman and her story arcs by saying this. There is tons of Wonder Woman and love arcs in the books. They are, it's deep. Truth and love. Truth and love. So the whole Steve Trevor arc is important because it's such a huge part of her character and why she does what she does and why she acts the way that she does, because she genuinely just loves everyone and everything and life and, you know, all of those things. So that's an important arc, and I think that's what Patty Jenkins was getting at. But if you throw that in front of a bunch of comic book people who want to see Wonder Woman beat people up, then it doesn't necessarily translate as well. Yeah. And, you know, the other thing, too, is a lot of people compare, and I think unfairly, comic book movies to regular cinema. And I think you can only do that with a handful of movies, and most of them are DC's. V is for Vendetta, Watchmen, Joker. Those are like true pieces of cinematic art. You can argue the Dark Knight trilogy. I would argue that with you. But a lot of those are like Oscar contending, big time story writing. This is a comic book. This is like a popcorn flick. Just turn your brains off, have fun. And the other thing, and this is why I said, thank you, Richard, for the setup, is that I've heard a lot of, this movie had a lot of plot holes. And I will tell you that the beloved movie Endgame has the worst plot holes I've ever seen in my life. And the time travel breaking of the rules that they do in that movie is agony when you really dig into it. So don't dig into it. It's a comic book movie. It's popcorn.
I think
your Cap on your left and Tony Stark's sacrifice and Cap picking up the hammer.
I do think the Loki TV series will address the breaking of the rules.
Oh snap!
You've got the time variance authority.
Yeah, but and then not only that, you know, the major hero of Endgame is a mouse. So I mean, there's like a lot of problems with Endgame. But I'm not here to crap on Endgame. I'm here to say there's problems with all these movies, right? So I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great. I'm not putting it on my top 10. It's definitely not as good as the first one. That's fair. But I say you cut out one villain, that brings the time down to a tighter story and gives you a chance to focus on, you know, the beauty of that one character instead of trying to split things between multiple characters.
I totally agree.
I think we all three kind of agree.
Yeah. So next time, you know, we'll have the Snyder cut where they get rid of Max Lord.
Well, and that, you know, that's a great point though, because a lot of people crapped on Batman versus Superman and Suicide Squad. I've seen extended cuts of both, and they're great. And you know what? You've made fun of Daredevil, and you can if you like. But the extended cut of Daredevil is actually good. Like you add all that stuff back in, and those movies turn out to be pretty great. So here's the challenge: write a shorter movie. Stop making it so that you have to have an extended cut that's 3 hours long so that anybody can enjoy it.
I know you probably enjoyed the Easter eggs as much as I did too. Oh, yeah. The Duke of Deception mentioned, the Simon Stagg from Metamorpho.
Seeing Simon was great. That was awesome.
So there was a little bit of like, you know, Easter eggy, Marvel-esque, MCU-esque Easter egg dropping happening there. So yeah, well, it's interesting that all three of us just kind of agree at the end of the day, it's not the biggest friggin' disaster in the world. No, but it could have been better.
There's Elektra and Catwoman, and there's lots of movies to crap all over. Iron Man 3, what?
And we've got Wonder Woman 3 coming in. You know, if Patty Jenkins keeps your very valid point about Wonder Woman being not fights, but thematic clashes, good versus evil, which is obvious for every superhero movie, but the power of love, the power of forgiveness, the power of second chances. I see what she was doing, and hopefully in 3, you get rid of Jeff Johns and just let her do it, and everything will be good.
And by the way, enough. I had enough of the lasso swinging there. That was getting a little Spider-Man-y. Like it's one of her abilities. And by the way, the bracelet slam, they only did it once and it didn't work. And so like there was a lot of, it was like the Lasso movie. It was like the Batman or the Batmobile in the last Arkham game where you were in the car like 90% of the game. Like there's other things they do.
It's gonna be tough because comic book fans enjoy a good battle, right? They enjoy a good brawl, and if Wonder Woman doesn't deliver that, they've got to deliver that kind of energy in a different way.
Oh yeah,
it's a real challenge.
And what do all the Amazons train for? For fun? No, they're training for battle and to defend their homeland. So. Yeah, I think we need to get a little more into the Ares God of War again, and the real mythological implications.
Yeah. But they had,
yeah.
And they haven't, for the record, they haven't even introduced her main villain, which is Cersei. So there's a lot of stuff you can do.
I want some Dr. Psycho, but that's just me. All right. The good news is there will be a Wonder Woman 3, or the bad news, depending on where you're from the spectrum. So that kind of puts the news about DC Comics in 2021 in a little perspective. Warner Brothers has not given up. Warner Media has not given up on DC intellectual property, apparently. They're still going to move forward. But have they given up on the monthly format of DC Comics? We've had these stories breaking about UCS, Midtown Comics Distribution, kind of going and saying, hey, you know what, DC, thanks for the opportunity. We're kind of done distributing your books. And now you've got Lunar Distribution being the sole distributor of DC Comics for retailers now. Some retailers are reacting very negatively, saying they can't go through this again. They can't start a new account, and they're not going to carry DC Comics, period. A little extreme, if you ask me.
A little dramatic.
If this is 30% of your business, 20% of your business, you're going to give up 20% of your business. I can't. One of the retailers, who shall remain nameless, went on social media and said, look, the amount of time spent ordering, assembling, going through all this for DC Comics does not match the revenue.
Right.
I get it, but I want to see that P&L.
Yeah, I mean, if it's 30% of your business, but only 10% of your profits, you know, it becomes difficult to hold on to that. You know, that just, you know, you shared with us earlier a clip of a particular LCS talking about it, you know, how they've been selling DC books for, 20 years. And it's, it's tough. These people don't want to stop selling DC books. It's just a business situation where it's the effort doesn't generate the profit. Then as a business person, you drop that particular line of business.
As a former retailer, I can tell you, and as a fan now looking outside, this is better. In my opinion, Lunar is doing something that UCS did not do. They now have a website, DC Connect, where now fans can actually go look at the solicitations like they used to on Diamond Previews. They can order directly from DC Connect and tell their retailer, hey, this is what I want. That was not an option since March when all this went down. So it's actually better for the fan. And I would say it's better for the retailer. You got to do a little work, guys. I mean, truth time. You guys ready? Comic retailers are one of two people: really aggressive people who like the hobby and want to make some money, and lazy fanboys who want to hang out. And the lazy fanboys who want a hangout hate doing the work. They hate going through the back issue bins. You bring something up, it's not priced. They go on eBay, look at the price because they can't be bothered otherwise. You bring up a hot book that they have priced for $5. They look at it and go, oh, this is priced wrong. This is hot now. You know what? F those guys. They need to go out of business. And
and this is a horrible time to get out of the DC game because you're going to have Future State coming up. And then the books that are coming after Future State, I saw the solicitations. There's a lot of really interesting things there. Crime Syndicate, the new Justice League, Wonder Woman's going to keep both Nubia and I forget her name. I'm sorry. The new Wonder Woman, the Brazilian Wonder Woman. There's tons of good stuff coming. Like it would be different if this were the middle of the year. It's just the same old books that have been coming out. No big event. No, you know what I mean? But there's like huge changes going on right now in DC, and you're going to drop that now? That seems weird to me.
But how long? For how long? I mean, DC's already talking about dropping titles. And how many of the titles are actually going to? I know you've seen solicitations, so that's 3 months out, right? But what happens in 6 months? What titles are still going to be out there? And given the volatility with DC right now, who wants to start a storyline that they don't know is ever going to be finished?
Well, let's take all that off the table. Let's take the storylines, the relaunches, everything. What percentage of your customer base do you think buys a DC or a couple of maybe more DC comics? 30%? I think that's lowballing it. Maybe 40%.
Yep.
You want to alienate 30 to 40% of your customer base and say, you know what, that thing you like, I don't carry it anymore. Sorry. and they're going to go somewhere else to get it. I don't know if you guys have heard of this thing called the internet, where you can order things and have it delivered to your house. I love supporting my LCSs. I love physically going in and saying, you know what, my LCS here in Long Beach, I could buy my lights on Amazon all day long. I tell him, I walk in and go, you know what, I want to buy these from you. Can you order them for me? I want to support you. And they love me for it. They give me one per stores all the time. So, to alienate a big chunk of your retail business because you're mad.
Yeah.
You know what? Sit down and do some work.
Hey, I drive 30 minutes to my LCS. I DJ'd the guy's wedding. If he told me tomorrow they wouldn't carry DC any longer, I wouldn't go there. I mean, it's a 30-minute drive for half the things I want, and then I buy the rest online. I'll just buy them all online. Like, part of the reason I go there is to talk to him, see how things are going, browse. I'll shut it down if he's, and I've already checked with him and he's still carrying DC. So
I may be off base here. If you're a retailer, explain to me why you don't want to do this. These people that are being very vocal about it, they're like crybabies. You used to order from several retailers back in the day. Back in the day, there was Capital City, there was Diamond, there was Heroes World. I had multiple retail accounts. It was a headache, and I had to be organized, and I had to do work. I'm sorry that you can't kick your feet back and talk about Wonder Woman 84 all day in your shop with your fans because you got to do a little work. That's how I feel.
No, I'm with you. I buy my regular book. Well, first of all, I buy books from the LCS because I want to support the LCS, not because it's my only option, right? I want a local presence. So I want somebody where I can pick up books immediately, and that's what my LCS is. If not, I'd buy all my books from Things from Another World online or wherever, which I still buy a lot of books there anyway. But I focus on buying key books there. And if all of a sudden they stop carrying, I pick up Batman. I've always read Batman. And if all of a sudden they stop carrying it, there's less of an impetus for me to support that LCS as opposed to just hit one extra button in my order from TFAW.
I tell you, if I knew for a fact that the 2 local comic book stores in my town were going to stop carrying DC Comics, I would find a lease tomorrow and open a shop. It's a huge business opportunity. And if your competition is not going to do it, someone will do it and you will lose. Period. And if you don't like it and you don't like the extra work, maybe it's time to sell your shop and find a new line of work. I hate to sound like a hard ass.
No, but I think you categorized it well. I mean, there are people who this is a hobby, not a business, right? It's an opportunity to get together with their friends and be able to have conversations with people and, keep the doors open, have a paycheck. Other people are, they're in the business to make money. And if you're in the business to make money, you sell what your customer wants, and your customer wants DC books. So you do whatever it takes to be able to offer that as a product. And there's people like John waiting in the wings. He's waiting for you guys not to sell DC books so he can open his store.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest. You shared that video with us. I watched it, and my first thought was, well, screw that guy. Like, that was the very first thing out of my mind. It wasn't, oh, maybe DC's in trouble. It was actually, well, that guy's an idiot. Like,
I realize the current situation is a stress on retailers, but you've got sharks like me sitting back watching going, oh, well, leases are really low right now because commercial businesses are horrible. And if you aren't going to handle this group of people that I can swoop in and find a cheap storefront for a year, sign a year lease and hire a couple of high school kids, I'm going to do it just to have a place to store my books. I mean,
I warn you guys. John is hankering to open a store again. So do not give him a reason to do so, because you will lose.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just saying, I learned all my lessons from my last store, and from all the marketing and everything I've learned over the years, it would be brutal. All right. So let me just sum this part of the podcast up by saying, if you're a retailer and you're fuming mad right now because I don't understand and I'm a jerk and John doesn't know, tell me right here in the comments. DM me. I'm honestly really curious. I put it out there to any retailer that says they're dropping DC Comics going forward. Come on this show. It'll be a friendly conversation. I'm not going to bark at you. I have an open mind. I seriously want to hear why you feel that way. I will counter it if I have a disagreement with you, but I think that would be a really productive, good conversation, because maybe I don't know something. Maybe the terms are changing too much. Maybe they're requiring far too many minimums. You know, I want to know the nuts and the bolts of it. And if I'm misinformed, I'm totally open to being told I'm wrong.
Maybe the fear, I wonder, let me defend them weirdly. Maybe the fear is that if DC is, if their trajectory is heading toward not print any longer, maybe they're trying to get ahead of the curve, but man, that's a serious bet. Woo! I don't know that I would take that.
You don't cut your throat you don't cut your own throat to stop someone from cutting it. You ride it out until the very end when they cut it and you go, okay, now I got to figure this out.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. You know, DC is talking about going all digital, and that to me is such a mistake.
Oh, God.
And if our retailers, do they want to support, you know, a company that has that kind of plan?
Yeah, I keep looking at DC and thinking, you know, I hope they learn the lessons of Marvel in the 90s. And they pivot.
It's not DC.
Yeah, you're right.
AT&T. AT&T is a huge corporation. They are 100% focused on bottom line, maximum revenue for minimum overhead. And this is a tiny drop of revenue in a huge ocean of AT&T revenue. And their focus is, why do we have so many people focused on this much revenue? So they either need to license it out to IDW or Marvel or someone and say, you know what, we're out of this business completely, or they need to divest it. Just divest it, find a new investor, a new owner. Just this death by 1,000 cuts is the worst thing. You're seeing these layoffs over and over. They just keep cutting it closer to the bone. Something's going to go down. They're never going to give up the IP. They're never going to give up the intellectual property. It's too much money, but they can give up the publishing division and still retain media rights and licensing rights, the stuff that makes the real money, because they've shown they obviously don't give a crap about R&D, research, and the comics as research and development anymore. So I think we've flogged this horse into a very thick glue. So what do you say we move on to our underrated books of the week? Evan, in honor of you, both Richard and I have picked DC Comics as the underrated books of the week. Richard, why don't you go first?
Yeah, you know, my pick is not a big spec book. It's not going to make you a fortune, but to me, this whole conversation about DC books brings me back to when I first started collecting, and I can tell you exactly how it started. My father handed me a stack of about 60 adventure comics and action comics. Some of them had covers, some of them didn't, and out of that 60, a majority of them were Legion of Superhero books. So I've always had a soft spot for the Legion, for all the main characters in the Legion. And I think, you know, if we're talking about DC properties, it's such a smorgasbord of characters with all kinds of complex relationships between them that's just ready-made to be lifted to either a TV show or a movie, or, you know, we're having a lot of streaming properties now. That seems to be the big thing. I could easily see this being a streaming property. So the first appearance of the Legion is expensive. It's Adventure Comics 247, and I'm sure you'll recognize the cover. It's Superman and the principal Legion characters, Superboy. Sorry, it's a good book, but you know, in this world nowadays, these first appearances, these Silver Age first appearances, are expensive. So one of the tricks that people are doing nowadays are looking for other first appearances of other characters, and the Action Comics 267 from 1960 has the first appearance of a variety of what I feel are very important characters for the Legion. You got the first appearance. First of all, it's the third appearance of the Legion in general. You got the first appearance of the Legion meeting Supergirl. You've got Chameleon Boy. I can't see them doing any LSH property without Chameleon Boy in it. He's such a major character. You got Invisible Kid. You've got Colossal Boy, and both of those are staple characters in the Legion mythos. So it's a great book with all these first appearances, and it's still affordable. A GPA for a 7.0 is only $250, and the highest graded book is a 9.6 that sold in November of this year for $3,100. So, you know, if you can get a decent mid-grade book for a reasonable amount of money. And to me, I'm not going to call it an investment book, but it's getting into the keys for the Legion at a reasonable price. There's other keys out there. I was looking at Action Comics number 276, which is the first Brainiac 5, which is another super character for the Legion. I don't see them getting away with not including in any property. But the Legion is the comics are still running strong. The characters are always interesting, and I see this as an opportunity to get into something while no one is paying attention to it.
And they showed up in the CW Arrowverse on Supergirl, and so, you know, they're definitely branching out.
I would love to see something with them. It's, again, something that drew me into comics, the relationship between all these teenagers. And remember, this is the 60s, early 70s when I was a kid. And, you know, the relationships weren't as complex as Marvel relationships, but they were still interesting, and each character had its own weaknesses and sense of responsibilities, and it really drew me into the comic collecting as a hobby.
Good choice. Very good choice. Mine's a lot more recent, and a book I didn't even realize was important until I started doing a little digging. When is the first appearance of the Batman Who Laughs?
Teen Titans number
12, right?
12, right.
Yeah.
Right. Wrong. The first appearance of the Batman Who Laughs is Batman Dark Days, the casting, number 1. This is the first cameo appearance of the Batman Who Laughs.
Interesting.
Now, cameos versus first appearances. Traditional old man, the three of us, a cameo is a cameo. The first appearance is the first appearance.
Right.
Hulk 181 is the first Wolverine, no matter what you say. I know he's on the last page of 180, but that's a cameo. It doesn't count. There is a whole new movement saying, you know what? Cameos are first appearances, which to me is more like, I can't afford a 181, so I want to make 180.
It's like the punchline argument all over again.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
So, Batman Dark Days, the casting, is the first cameo appearance of the Batman Who Laughs. It's got a foil cover, so it's not tough to get in high grade. And the 90-day GPA for a 9.8 is just $81. Compare that to Teen Titans 9.8, Teen Titans 12 and 9.8, and you've got a bargain right now. And I'm not sure why this book isn't getting more attention. So I don't have one. So
is it in canon?
It is, I think. Yeah. Evans,
you bring in the Dark Multiverse and anything could be canon, but you know, that character is hot right now, man. My LCS has 8 different figures for Batman Who Laughs. Like it's a great character, and his interactions with the Joker were awesome. And yeah, there's a lot of meat there.
Yeah, see, to me, it's a ripoff of Judge Death. Yeah, that's what I see every single time I see him. I think Judge Death.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that not one of the three of us knew about this book is something. It could be one of those things like Richard and I talked about before about books. Either it's completely under the radar and it's going to explode, or just no one honestly gives a crap. So we'll see. It was just really interesting. But that is all of our mega DC news for the week. We want to thank our special guest, Evan. Evan, thank you so much for joining us. We really
glad to be here. Yep. Anytime you want to talk DC, that's what I'm here for.
All right. And if you're not following us on Facebook and Instagram, please do it, Broads and Modern Gods. Like I said, our daddies never loved us. We need constant validation. Like this video, subscribe, leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform, and the hole in our souls will heal, much like our nation. Richard, you have a good week.
have a good year. The next time we do this, it will be 2021.
And the little teaser next week, it will be our 2020 year in review.
Nice.
Our what did we pick hot books? How did they end up? We're going to see some successes from our predictions and a lot of flops. So 2020 year in review next week. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you then.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.